And welcome into the Thursday edition, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you. Joseph, good morning. How are you?
Doing okay. Better than your Vols. I think the Vols may have lost a 1 seed last night. Not sure yet. Wouldn't call that a for sure thing, but Florida winning at Alabama and Tennessee losing at Ole Miss. That might be the recipe for a 2 seed, unfortunately. But again, oh no, we got a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. Yeah, that means that you're one of the top 8 teams in the country.
It does, but quit choking away things. Like, my God, win the games you're supposed to win.
It's an incredible league, man. It's an incredible league. It's you know, hey, not to make excuses, they didn't play their best. He gave up too many offensive rebounds, but I mean, these SEC teams, my gosh, they might all just beat the crap out of each other so much that none of them do anything in the NCAA tournament. I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Nick Keyser, how we doing? What's going on?
Good morning. Yeah, a little busy last night. Just kind of recovering from a good workout, but then also being put aback by Tommy Novak and Luke Shin being dealt. So,
wow.
What kind of workout did you do?
You working out and Pred's working out some deals, huh?
Yesterday was just a good weight day.
Okay. All right. What kind of weights? On the body?
I mean, a little bit of body weight and a little bit of dumbbells, a little bit of, the Smith machine, all the good stuff.
All right.
No, I don't know what the Smith machine is. What the hell is that? Tell me what the Smith machine is.
What he's talking about.
Okay. So whatever the machine is where I'm pushing more oftentimes. I did do lat pull down. Sorry, I'm still waking up.
Okay.
You're asking me things I did forever ago now. So
lat pull down. Okay.
10 hours ago?
Sorry. Tired.
Have we traded you to Pittsburgh too?
No.
Keyser is gone to Pittsburgh.
He's here in spirit.
Yes. We will get into the Tommy Novak, Luke Shin trade to Pittsburgh a little bit later in the program. Michael Bunting coming back the other way, who is currently on IR. So we'll see what exactly the Predators' plans are with him, whether he's a guy that's going to be here next year, he is under contract, or if the Predators decide to move him in the offseason. But interesting trade last night. So we will get into that a little bit later in the show. Take your thoughts. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Charles Robinson will be with us at 8 o'clock. We got a lot to discuss with Charles. NFL free agency beginning next week. We'll get into what PK had to say yesterday on the Sam Darnold front. All that and more coming up with Charles. Joe, apparently DK Metcalf wants out of Seattle. So they released Tyler Lockett yesterday. And now Metcalf has been working through some things with Seattle. And apparently it has now reached the point where he wants to be traded from the Seahawks. And apparently he is going to be out there and is going to be available. Obviously, you're talking about, a 27-year-old that has been very productive in this league. He's got the combination of size and speed, where if you look at, what you're looking for of physical traits in a wide receiver, it's hard to find one that matches that more than DK Metcalf does. Obviously, the play where, he chases down Buda Baker on Sunday Night Football was one that we're going to remember for a long time with him. So you've got the speed, you've got the power, you've got the size, you've got the production there. What do you make of DK Metcalf apparently being available from the Seattle Seahawks?
Yeah. First of all, sometimes these trade requests happen. Is this like him reacting to, his like Lockett? Is this something that ends up cooling down and then, everybody, cooler heads prevail? And, like Myles Garrett is going to be in Cleveland this year, is DK Metcalf. He's got the highest 2025 cap hit among receivers this year. So let's see, he signed a 3-year, $72 million extension. I'm looking at possibilities. I'm looking at now Sean Michael Dugar covers Seahawks for us. I'm looking at some of the things that people have thrown out there, like Bills, a 3rd-round pick, and Curtis Samuel. The Packers. What would you think of the Packers sending Romeo Doubs and a 4th rounder?
Do it.
You're in on that, right? So
this is exactly what they need.
I think a lot of teams would be like, oh yeah, we'll take DK Metcalf. So something like a day 2 pick, and maybe if the Seahawks could get a veteran, a good receiver back, I mean, would the Seahawks be happy with? I saw people throwing this around all over the place. You know, the Steelers sending them Roman Wilson in a third, something like that.
Yeah.
You know, like and they get a receiver back. Like for you, you know, I mean, Dobbs, you know, is a good
Dobbs
player,
good player.
but yeah,
I'll take
that's
DK Metcalf,
absolutely
yeah.
an upgrade plus a pick. That's an upgrade.
Yeah.
So, you know, are the Titans?
I have the odds.
What have you got for the Titans?
I have the odds. The Titans are on the list for
Okay.
DK Metcalf's next team. Now, as I'm saying that, and I'm looking at this list, and every team's on the list for DK Metcalf's next team, but the Titans are number 11 on the list at 18-1 odds.
Okay.
Packers at 1 at 3-1. Then old Rabes and the Patriots at number 2.
Oh.
The Raiders, the Steelers, the Chargers, the Cowboys, the Texans, the Bills, the Falcons, the Broncos. Then you get to the Titans.
Interesting. So interesting that the Packers are top of the list. Why do you think that is?
Well, there's been like some random scuttlebutt about this for the last couple of weeks, but nothing that's been like concrete. Obviously, it hasn't been. We didn't know about the trade request till yesterday, so they need him. Like I think they need a number 1 guy. They've got a lot of good receivers, but they need a number 1 guy.
I mean, that's what Josh Jacobs said.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Maybe that factors in.
All due respect to our average mid receivers.
And remember, I'm saying with all due respect,
yeah.
we need a guy. So, like I think it makes a lot of sense to go after him.
That would just make the AFC North or the NFC North that much tougher, man. If DK Metcalf came to town,
what if Rabes gets up there and starts pulling some moves?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what.
Where do you give him back?
Like the Patriots, I don't know like their draft stockpile situation. Do they have some extra picks?
I do not know.
Around? Let's see. Well, let me see. I've got a proposal here for a second and a third from Vrabes. Would Vrabes give up a second and a third? I mean, Metcalf is a heck of a player, man.
He is.
I mean, he's a known commodity who, I mean, talk about helping Drake May instantly and having some good years here.
You know, the most important thing with that dude, like he, for the most part, stays healthy. And that's a big deal.
For as physical as he is, he's the one he's the aggressor. He's going to hurt you. You're not going to hurt him.
What about the Titans? We've been talking about them need to find receiving help.
That is
put
true.
Yourself into the hat if you're the Titans here.
Yeah, you could. You know, you'd be. I mean, certainly you would have a 1, and now Ridley would be a 2, and it's not like you'd be ancient. You would be paying a lot of money at receiver, and then we have no idea who's throwing to them.
Yeah.
Apparently Mac Jones may potentially per PK, but it's certainly kicked the tire situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same. But again, it's like, so, you know, the Titans don't have a third. It's like a lot of people be like, well, that's a win now move. And I agree. But again, you need to try to be good.
Well, he's 27. Like, you know, theoretically he can be good for more than, you know, next year.
It's not like Julio Jones, which obviously didn't work out at all. But I mean, the idea there was he might have a year or 2 of greatness left. He didn't, but that was the idea. This guy has multiple years.
Got one texter that says Traylon Burks on a 5th. You can
take
it or leave it.
Oh yeah.
What's up, Seattle?
They'll jump all over that one.
Chip from Mount Juliet says, why would you trade for Metcalf when there's Adams and other free agent wide receivers out there and available?
Well, Adams. First of all, right now, you may disagree with me, and maybe I'm overreacting, but I would take Metcalf over Adams right now. And tell me the other free agents. I know that there are other free agents, Chip. There are other dudes, but I mean, DK Metcalf he's a special player.
Well, and why you would do it is because he's 27 and he's a proven commodity. Like the elite wide receivers that are still in the prime of their careers do not become available very often. So that's what the difference would be. Like, look, I love Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams, I still think in the right situation can be a very, very good player, but he's 32. It's not the same as he was 3-4 years ago.
Right. Which is where DK Metcalf is.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mo says getting DK to be the makeup of AJ Brown. Yeah. Get the other Ole Miss guy. Get the Ole Miss guy after stupidly trading the other one.
Yeah.
I got a Nevada Josh saying, let's go get Joey Bosa. Boy,
well,
you are obviously not one of those Titans fans who doesn't want injured players anymore.
No. Apparently
You're
not.
good with injured players. I mean, Joey Bosa, man, that guy has seen better days.
Yes, he has.
He's, he'll pop up like Punxsutawney Phil and Amy Adams Strunk every once in a while, make a play, but I wouldn't mess with that.
Max Crosby getting $106.5 million yesterday. He's the highest paid non-quarterback if you're going strictly by just annual average value.
Good for him.
In NFL history. What did you make of the Max Crosby deal and the ability of the Raiders to keep him around, because that has not always been a certainty over the past few months?
Yeah, a lot of talk about him moving. And it'd be nice to actually, sometimes you get sick of certain teams sucking for so long. And it'd be nice for the Raiders to not suck. Although then, I don't know.
Then bowl cuts walking around and his chest popped out. And then your boy, Brady.
Yeah, well, maybe Brady will enjoy it so much he'll stop subjecting us to his announcing. But Max Crosby is an incredible player. Max Crosby deserves it. And, he deserves them to give him a chance to be on at least decent teams here in his prime. He's a ridiculous player.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of speculation out there about could he be available. We had some Titans fans asking us, like, if the Raiders try to move up to number one, would Max Crosby be a part of a deal? I never thought that was probably going to happen. But, could a team like the Bills, like the Packers, like those teams that are right on the edge of being, Super Bowl contenders, could they have made a push for Crosby this offseason? And, he got on, I think he was talking at the Super Bowl just about how, he wants that next deal, but he didn't know exactly where it was going to come from. Well, he's got it from the Raiders now, and here you go. So it looks like he's staying put.
Yeah, it's a smart move by them. If you have a truly great player, keep your great players. So now, and they got Brock Bowers last year.
Yep.
He's a great player. He's going to be a great player in this league. So, it's maybe a sign of good things to come.
How about those Raiders?
Yeah.
615-737-1025, our phone number. We're off and running today here on the program. We got a lot to get into today. We got the best and worst in sports coming up later in the show. Derek McKenzie, Preds assistant coach, will join us at 7:30. Preds have made a trade last night. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports will be with us at 8 o'clock, getting into all things NFL before free agency begins next week. So we got a lot coming today here on the program. We'll take your thoughts in the meantime. 615-737-1025. PK throwing it out there yesterday that the Titans are not expected to chase after Sam Darnold. More reaction to that. Do we like it? Do we not like it? What's the plan B? We'll get into all that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership with a buzz is always about great service. Still some thoughts rolling in on the DK Metcalf front. Josh says Landry for DK Metcalf.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I got some picks.
I got a text from Kyle Tucker. He's got an early fight. Kyle Tucker is our biggest fan, and he often says
that's not a Brable, but yeah.
Well, that's true. Kyle Tucker's asking us to discuss what Stilly said yesterday, which I shall not. All I know is
let's have more professional into the show.
There's many ways to talk about people being excited. Like, you don't have to always go in the gutter, okay? Let's keep it above board, okay?
Daddy, I may now say you suck. Everyone sucks. Goo goo gaga.
Above board and above waist.
Yes.
Can we do that?
That would be very much preferred.
Speaking of Stilly,
tough day for him yesterday.
Well, I mean, I don't think the guy's won one of these this year, and I mean, again, it has to be geared toward him to just give him some charity wins every once in a while. But they can't even do that. It's so bad with some of these takes. But he's really like he's. I think it's more hope than anything. But this idea that that PK has gotten bad information here. Yeah. If you're a Titans fan, I wouldn't get your hopes up on that. Now, again, I also think it would be ridiculous for the Tennessee Titans to not look into this. I think that would be crazy.
So if you missed it yesterday, PK was with us, and he said, basically, if you're expecting the Titans to go after Sam Darnold and get themselves involved into a longer-term, high-priced quarterback deal, that they're not going to do that. Like, I would not expect that from the Titans. So, and the headline in his piece at paulkowarski.com is, don't look for Titans to chase Sam Darnold with pricey long-term deals. So that's not, as we discussed yesterday on the show, that's not PK just throwing his opinion out there. It's
a report. Yeah.
A report of him basing things off that he has been told. So it doesn't look like the Titans are really all that interested in involving himself in a long-term deal. Now, the one thing PK did say was, well, if the price comes down and maybe Darnold's not able to get the deal that he's looking for on the open market, then maybe the Titans could involve themselves then. But again, like I would say, if that happens, then does he circle back to Minnesota? Like, There's a whole lot of options that go on. So bottom line is, it doesn't sound like Sam Darnold's coming to the Tennessee Titans.
Right. So, yeah. And so then you get into, again, these kind of hopeful. I mean, we don't even need to redo all the, like, when the Titans say something and then something else happens, then to Stilly, like, they were lying all along. Like, they were lying. They lied. And it's like, well, sometimes what happens is, I think, especially with this owner, is the owner changes her mind. I think we've seen that. But in his mind, they're lying. They just lie. Okay. Well, he's hoping that they're lying now. It doesn't make much sense, again, without knowing exactly who said exactly what and how the conversation came about, all that stuff. PK is not going to report something like this if it's, sort of random hanger on, loitering around the building, right? So has
Schultz put it out there yet?
I don't know. Apparently I have to pay more attention to him.
Better step his game up.
It's so weird that you don't follow Jordan Schultz.
But it doesn't, like, what is I understand that there's misinformation that's lying season, right? I get that. So stuff like that happens. But what that usually is like, it's like stuff comes out about a prospect that maybe is like unfavorable from a team that actually wants the prospect. You know what I mean? That's more like the draft time period player acquisition period, lying season, like a team basically telling a reporter who covers that team that they're not going to be. That's again still like, well, maybe they're floating it to see what the public reaction would be. Well, first of all, like, the only reaction where it's like, no, is from you. So if it's your reaction, then I think we already knew what that would be. But it just doesn't make much sense. And so, look, I don't agree with it. I don't think the Titans are thinking soundly on this situation. But it has to mean that they think less of Darnold than I do. That must mean that, right?
You would think so. Does it mean that drafting Cam Ward at number 1 is maybe the plan here? Because I will say, I look at the rest of the quarterback market, and PK talked about yesterday that, like, if you're expecting Darnold to be the quarterback, what you're probably more likely going to end up with is a situation where they sign a stopgap player at the position, like a Mac Jones or somebody like that, and it's him and Will Levis in the quarterback room next year, which is about as exciting as me walking out into traffic out there. So I understand that. Like, if you're a Titans fan, that is not going to get you all that excited. Do you think the Darnold report, is it more likely to you that they just take Cam Ward at number 1 based on that information?
That's another thing that we got into, and you I'm actually meant to go back and listen, and then I didn't. But I mean, Kaharski, I know Kaharski said that maybe the more likely is like that Levis scenario you just laid out, which is just a doozy. But Kaharski also did not throw cold water totally on Cam Ward.
He did not.
No. Yeah, and that's another thing that still he misheard. But yeah, look, I think drafting a QB again, I would pick Sanders. Although again, I don't like either of them at 1. I think you're making a huge reach, but I also understand the idea of, gee, you need a quarterback. Weston Hermitage says, when I heard that report, it made me immediately think, yep, the Titans want Sam Darnold. Again, why? If they want Sam Darnold, you know what they'll do? They don't have to tell anybody anything, but they'll just go try to sign him. Like, there's no benefit to like publicly having it out there that they don't want him. Like, it doesn't, like, where does that help you? Again, it's not like the same thing of misinformation season around a prospect, in the draft that you hope falls to you or whatever. Like, there's no reason to do that.
Yeah, PK in his piece says, I believe the Titans, if they pass on Ward and Sanders, who seems less attractive to them, are prepared for a worst-case scenario where they sign a stopgap player like Mac Jones or Jameis Winston at quarterback and go with him and Levis for 2025. In that scenario, they'd be spending draft capital and financial resources on a long list of other needs, topped by edge rusher, right tackle, guard, receiver, that includes safety, tight end, and inside linebacker. That was what PK threw out there yesterday. So Mac Jones or Jameis Winston or, I don't know, Jacoby Brissett, come on down, maybe.
Yeah, sure. Chip from out Juliet says, a lot of what teams are doing now is media manipulation 101, smoke screens before the draft, not showing their cards, especially a team with the number 1 pick. Okay. Again, that's fine. And you can, a few years ago you had like the Titans, they like Stroud, they like this play, whatever. And then maybe it got a little bit too transparent, right, on draft day. But again, this particular thing, it's like, I'm failing to see how it helps you. I mean, yeah, other than just, I like to manipulate the media, lie to people.
I mean, could you make the argument, and I don't know that this is the argument I would make, but if you're interested in Darnold and it comes out that you tried to sign him and you couldn't do it, does that affect your negotiating ability with the number 1 overall pick later on? I don't know. Like, let's say free agency comes around and the reports come out that the Titans are in on Sam Darnold. They don't ultimately end up getting him. He goes somewhere else. Does other teams looking around saying, well, clearly you don't like Cam Ward. You're trying to go get Sam Darnold. We're not giving you as much for the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but I mean, it really comes down to how much that team cares about him,
Yeah.
I mean, because the thing is, when it comes down to it, does the team think it's still possible they'll take him?
Right.
Because if you don't end up signing him, then you have a quarterback need.
I mean, you can make the argument if they were into Sam Darnold and they didn't get him, then it's like, okay, well, I guess we need a quarterback.
Right.
Number 1.
So now their need has increased. Yeah. Doesn't really, we'll see. Again, I would be disappointed in the Titans if they don't at least try. They don't try to do something.
I heard from McEwen says, what if they get this stopgap QB, but he turns out to be awesome, leads the team to a winning record, maybe even the playoffs? I don't know. Like, I'm trying to imagine who that would be. Like, look, we've seen crazier things than like a Mac Jones coming in, playing quarterback, playing well. And, look, Mac Jones, he was talking about Mac Jones at the end of last year of like, could he be a guy that's one of those next reclamation type guys? I don't know. Maybe Mac Jones is next stop. Maybe he does turn into one of these guys. Like with Jameis specifically, as much as I love Jameis Winston and talking about him, I think we kind of know what Jameis is at this point. Like he can come in, he can light it up.
He's
throw
Ryan
for a lot of
Fitzgerald.
yards.
He's Ryan
Fitzpatrick,
not Fitzgerald. He's
He-
Fitzmagic.
He's going to throw for a lot of yards, and he's going to turn the ball over quite frequently.
Yeah,
Like
and be
that's what
very
we know.
entertaining.
Yeah.
The Mac Jones thing, that's another thing. But much people were blowing me up yesterday because, he used to love him, right?
Oh, yeah.
And now it's like these guys are idiots for even considering it.
Yeah.
My God, the flip-flop.
A lot of flip-flopping going on out there. We'll take more of your thoughts on the quarterback situation for the Titans. What do you make of PK's report that would not expect the Titans to really be going after Sam Darnold, particularly if there's a long-term commitment involved with it? Taking your thoughts on that. By the way, Diana Rossini has put it out there that the Seahawks are seeking a first and third round pick for DK Metcalf, and that Metcalf is eyeing a new contract worth around $30 million per year. Multiple teams have inquired. First and third. I don't think they're going to get that, but we'll see.
That's pricey.
That is pricey. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. This week's Nashville's best deals from Brewster's Real Ice Cream in Hendersonville. See why Brewster's is a scoop above the rest with the best ice cream, shakes, sundaes, splits, blast, and more. Visit thegamenashville.com/deals and get half off a $50 gift card while supplies last. Big fan of Brewster's. Shout out to Hendersonville. Taking your thoughts, 615-737-1025. Let's head to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in Ed in New Jersey. Ed, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, good morning, guys. A little bit about Darnold. Joe, I just have a question for you, taking us back to our many moons ago in our college days. But is Darnold like the pretty girl at the end of the bar? It's a whole lot prettier after 3 hours of drinking.
A 2 at 10 is a 10 at 2. Are you saying a 2 at 10 is a 10 at 2?
Yes. I'm just wondering, do you love Darnold because of the circumstance and the surroundings? I mean, if there was other options, wouldn't he be 4th or 5th on your list? So why commit to a guy who wouldn't be on your radar? You know, it to me, it's more of a, oh, we're going to do this because we have no other options. They do if we're patient. That's my only rebuttal to the Darnold argument.
Okay.
Just wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Real quick, though. So what is your preferred option then? Just to wait till next year and get a quarterback?
I want to bring in a little bit somebody stronger than our backup last year, somebody stronger than Rudolph. It's not going to be great. Brissett type, and just roll with Levis for another year. We're not winning it next year. We're not going to be competitive next year. I'm not saying to throw it away, but let's be patient. Let's try and get a first-round pick out of next year by trading this pick away. I think that's important for me. And just build. Do what the Texans did 2 years ago. Go spend on a volume number of free agents before they landed Stroud. Go do what the Commanders did last year. Take that approach. Go get your quarterback next year. I've been a fan for so long that I'm willing to wait another year. I have a different perspective. So
thank you, Ed. Appreciate it.
So Ed is basically going after the principal's mother who's chaperoning the dance.
Sounds like it.
Sounds awesome, Ed. Well, I mean, look, you know what? I'm okay with fans, like, you have that patience.
Sure.
I get it. But, like, I want you to really think about living through next season.
Beyond that, have you seen this owner? Like, what's her reaction going to be if you go through another year where they're terrible? Now, I can tell you, like, if they're not good next year, I mean, Brian Callahan's going to get fired. Like, I think we know that.
You would think so.
So I don't think that she'll move off a Brinker or Borgonzi or anything like that. But good Lord, I don't know. Like, have you seen her?
Yeah, Brian Callahan. Yeah, right. I mean, Brian Callahan just loves this idea that Ed's throwing out there. I mean, look, it's refreshing to hear that there's some Titans fans who are okay with that plan. But I just, obviously, Ed and I do disagree, Ed, on the idea that Darnold just happens to be the best thing available. I think he's pretty good. I'm sorry. And I understand that, like, that's a pretty small sample size of evidence to demonstrate that, but it's a little bit better than you think. Again, I'll point you to, I thought Gentry Estes did a really good job of laying it out in the Tennessean yesterday. And still he has too. The fact that if you really look at how he played in the last few games, totally afterthought of a season, and no one gave a crap about Carolina that year, but it was pretty good. We have had on this show, we've talked about it before. Charles talked about how the Niners were gushing about him. I mean, I don't think last year was completely out of nowhere. I don't think last year was smoke and mirrors. Yes, like, would you prefer like someone better, like a Stafford to be available? Sure, of course. But I think with Sam Darnold, you could have a middle of the league starter. And I know that sounds really exciting, but again, I'm comparing that to, you're talking about Brissett and whoever and Levis. And I think that's just a terrible experience for next year for people who already had to watch this bad football. I think doesn't that matter some?
Here's the part that kind of bothers me about all this. I don't know that I'm as high on Darnold as you and Stilly are. Like, I think he's fine, but I do understand the hesitation of if it gets up into committing to him for 3 or 4 years. I just don't know that I want to do that. So I don't have as big of a problem with that. I guess what I don't understand is why it has to be either Darnold or like Mac Jones. Like there's no middle ground. There's no Russell Wilson. There's no Kirk Cousins. There's no Aaron Rodgers. Like why is there not a middle ground? Like if you're going stopgap anyway, I guess the fan answer would be, well, they're trying to be as bad as possible so next year they can draft their next quarterback. I don't think that the front office is thinking that way right now.
I don't either. And
So-
I know Brian Callahan's not.
Yeah, I
thinking
know
that
Brian
way.
Callahan's not. I don't think the front office is, and I'm pretty sure the ownership group is not. So why does it have to be either Sam Darnold or we're going all the way to the bottom of the list for the Mac Joneses and the Jameis Winstons of the world?
Yeah.
That's what I don't understand.
Well, I will say, like Mac. I mean, I don't know right now that Mac Jones isn't better than like Cousins. You know, I don't know.
Maybe.
And Rodgers is better, but also like that's an actual baggage situation as opposed to like people talk about Shador. Like,
How big of a deal is that for 1 year?
Yeah.
Like you're not committing. It's not like you're committing for him being your franchise quarterback. Yeah, he might be a pain in the butt to deal with for a year, but if he gives you your best chance to win, like shouldn't you be confident enough in your organization that you can handle that for a year?
yeah, that's fine. But I don't. Again, with Darnold, it's you're committing for 2 years. You're going to spend money. You're going to give him the guaranteed money, and you're committing for 2 years. I just don't think that's the end of the world. And even if you do that, it doesn't mean that you can't draft a quarterback next year or whatever, right? You're locked in for 2 years if you give him a 4-year deal. And look, if there is some in-between deal, like whatever, like a 3-year deal or something like that, which still would be more than the Vikings, maybe that's possible. Like I think the Titans should, despite PK's report, I think that they should at least explore the possibility. I think more of him than you do, and that's fine. I don't think
he's bad.
Yeah.
I just the last 2 games. I think the last 2 games clearly are scaring off a lot of people.
Yep.
I look at him like, I don't know. Like, is he worth committing that amount of financial capital and that amount of time to? I don't know what the answer to that is. But again, I just don't know why it either has to be that or your bottom of the barrel stopgap quarterback. Like, I understand nobody's going to get excited about a Kirk Cousins or an Aaron Rodgers, but I think I would rather take my chances with one of them for a year. And then if you're bad, okay, go get the quarterback then. But at least give yourself a chance. Like, what are you doing with Jameis Winston? Like, as much as I love Jameis Winston, what are you doing with Jameis Winston as your quarterback next year? What are you doing with Mac Jones as your quarterback next year?
I think there's a big difference between those two. I mean, Jameis Winston, everybody knows what he is. He's been in the league for 10 years. Mac Jones, I'm not optimistic. He did have that one good year with the and he's young. So Mac Jones had one good year with the Patriots, and it was promising. And then they bring in freaking Matt Patricia and like Joe Judge to be fake offensive coordinators. Like Belichick, like what he did to that kid is insane to me. So
Jacoby Brissett,
like at least there's but again with him, what he is. At least with Mac Jones, there's a little bit of unknown. Like, could there be upside? Could there be a renaissance? I wouldn't predict it, but I mean, I think I look at him differently than those old guys, basically. I just want to get back to this on the whole idea of like them lying and stuff. Like with Wes and I are going back and forth on the text, and he says they want everybody to think they want Cam Ward. It drives the price for Ward up if teams think they want him. I don't understand why you say this doesn't make sense. Because Wes, they're going to do something in free agency, or they're going to not do something in free agency, right? So like right now, we're going to find out next week.
Yeah, like next week's when it's going down.
So then if they have a quarterback, everybody knows that they're looking to get out of there. And if they don't, then maybe teams are like, okay, well, maybe they'll actually take Cam Ward. But again, either way, how badly does the team want Cam Ward?
Well, and I would also argue too, like if they went and signed Darnold, then you would know. Like they're not drafting Cam Ward if they sign
then you would know
Sam Darnold. If they go out next week and they sign Jameis Winston, I don't know that changes the equation all that much as to whether or not they're drafting Cam Ward.
I agree that they could still, but again, we're going to know right now lying. Next week's
exactly
the things are happening.
Well, and they've already said like they're not really interested in making a trade at number 1 overall until they go through their entire process.
So they're not doing anything anyway until we see what actually happens. That's the point.
Let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Kenny the mailman. Kenny, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Good morning, good friends. I hate to do this, but I got to straighten Robby out. I usually don't.
There you
but
go.
This is for Robby. You're asking, well, why can't they sign the best one? And the result after that would only be to get the worst. To drag somebody here as a free agent, you're going to either have to pay 25 or 30% more than any other team is willing to, or it's the last resort. The agent is going to have to tell the player that is your last resort. Because when I go on vacation, people, I don't go where there's been mudslides or monsoons or anything like that. The Titans are the mudslide of the NFL. Why would anybody come here? They're going to lose 12 to 13 next year. And to get a quarterback to face that, you'll have to either overpay or it's last resort. Hey, y'all have a great day.
Thank you, Kenny. I appreciate it.
Don't you love Nashville, Kenny?
The mudslide.
Nashville
of
does
the
not.
NFL.
The
I kinda like
mudslide
that.
NFL is pretty good.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's definitely validity to that point.
But again, I guess my point is it's 1 year, right? Like
Yeah.
you're talking about 1 year of quarterback play.
So, but I will say, Darnold, I think you could sell. Hey, you're our guy, long term. We're gonna build around you. Like we got all this new stuff. Let's go. Yeah, like Rodgers, it's like okay. I mean, again, it maybe just be that he's so out of options that he would be interested. But it's like, yeah, how about come for a year and we're gonna suck?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's a great sales pitch. I don't understand why we go from it's either going to be Darnold or it has to be Jacoby Brissett. Like I think there's some middle ground there that the Titans need to explore if they're going to go in the veteran quarterback market.
Yeah, I mean, look at all of them if you're gonna bail on Golden Boy Sam Darnold.
615-737-1025, our phone number. The best and worst things in sports. Coming up next, we'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game.
The best and worst of the sports week. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This is the worst.
You look like you're feeling sorry for yourself. You believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
He's one of one. He is him.
This is a Coke bottle. It's not a crystal ball.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Okay, let's go.
It is time for the best and worst things in sports. We'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Joe Rexrode, kick us off with your best and worst things in the world of sports.
Best. It's March Madness. This is March. I mean, an hour after our show, we got Tennessee Vanderbilt women's basketball in the SEC tournament. They only played once this year. 71-70 Vanderbilt win over Tennessee. Fantastic game there. Let's see. You've got Lipscomb in the A-Sun semis tonight. Middle Tennessee, both their teams are in for big things. Middle Tennessee men with a huge game against Liberty tonight. You've got, obviously, in less than a week, we have the SEC tournament starting up here. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. It's March Madness. I mean, I guess I could just do that it might be my best for the rest of the month, but maybe I'll just say it and then just give you different facts about whatever is happening that particular day.
Sure.
Exciting times. Belmont too, by the way, they got a shot in the MVC Arch Madness, as they call it. They got a shot in that one too to win the automatic bid. My worst, just being a Dallas Mavericks fan. Like, how bad must that be? Like, if you are like a true diehard Dallas Mavericks fan, you now have, of course, Kyrie Irving at loss for the season with an ACL. On top of sitting there and watching Luka just go to LA, and he and LeBron are just destroying everybody, and they kind of look like they might actually be real dangerous in the playoffs. And Luka looks amazing. And
AD's not playing.
And AD's hurt, of course, too. So. I mean, now at least apparently the jersey thing is fake, so that's good. Yes. But my God, my worst in sports, being a Dallas Mavericks fan, it must be awful right now.
It's a tough one, no doubt about that. Keezer, your best and worst things in the world of sports.
So I was going to go to Dallas for my worst, but I'll find something else. But for my best,
you can share it with me.
I mean, I think we covered it. But in our best, Saquon Barkley's new deal, I think the running back market has a good little uptick here with all that. I saw him back at Valhalla earlier in the summer, but good to see a guy like that get a new deal, especially after all the drama last year. So, yeah, I'm glad for him. But, yeah, I thought that was pretty fun to see the Eagles win the Super Bowl with a guy like that. I would say in my worst, I might just say this as more like there's not as much recognition. I don't know how many people would actually care about it. But MTSU's very own Chris Massaro is going to be part of the college football playoff committee.
Not getting the credit he deserves.
Yeah, I mean, that is pretty cool. Locally here, look.
Wait, so that's a worst?
Well, like, it's not like a terrible thing.
Chris Massaro's going to mess up this whole playoff.
Hey, you know what? One day you might
Western
come in.
Grad.
You might come in. Well, yeah, hopefully. Look, honest to God, I don't want Western Kentucky to be on the committee because they have no business. I mean, they're not going to be a part of that tournament. Are you kidding?
Well, how do you know?
I mean,
you got to have a variety of voices. Yeah. He'll do a great job.
Yeah. I'm sure he will, but
contrary to what you think, he'll do a great job.
Well, I didn't say Chris would do bad.
We love giving Keezer some crap on the program.
Yes.
It's one of our favorite pastimes.
Congrats to Chris Massaro. That'll be interesting.
My best thing in sports, Alex Ovechkin chasing down Gretzky for the goal record in the NHL. It's really unbelievable what he's doing this year. He's 10 away from breaking the record.
9 to tie.
9 to tie, 10 to break. And it's a record that a lot of people thought would never be broken in the NHL. He's going to do it. It's just a matter of is he going to do it this year? He's got 32 goals in 46 games. I mean, he's hurt for a significant portion of this year. 32 goals in 46 games at his age. It's unbelievable what he's doing this year. So it looks like he's going to break it like this regular season, which is just amazing. So he is, I think, already the greatest goal scorer in NHL history, and he will officially be so here very shortly. But it's awesome to watch.
It is. And yeah, like going into the year, it's like, yeah, okay, so at some point next season,
Right,
that'll happen. And yeah, for him to get it this year, I mean, frankly, some of these teams, here and there, like, like just give him, do him a solid. Do a Brett Favre falling
yeah,
for
just
Michael
falling
Strahan.
down. Yeah,
It's
he's
amazing.
39.
Yeah.
He's 39 years old. He's got 32 goals in 46 games. It's unreal.
Best goal scorer, best Stanley Cup celebrator.
Yeah, there's
both.
that. Well,
in
and
NHL
look,
history.
they're really good. They got a chance to go win another one this year. My worst thing, this Mikko Rantanen situation in Carolina. So they make the trade to go get Rantanen. They send Marty Necas back to Colorado. And the thought is, well, okay, we'll just sign Rantanen to a long-term deal and he'll be our franchise player. Well, we're a day away from the trade deadline now. He's not signed a contract. And Friedman put out a piece last night how now Carolina's open to like all possibilities with Rantanen and are looking into like the return you get. First off, the return that you could get now is going to be severely affected by the fact that if everybody knows he's not signing a long-term extension with you, then you're not going to get as much of a return for him at the trade deadline here. So I would almost just say if I was them, just go for it. And if you lose him for nothing at the end of the year, you lose him for nothing at the end of the year. But not exactly what you had in mind when you made the trade to give up to go get Rant.
How do you not have your homework done?
I don't know.
In advance
on
this.
Well,
usually that's the case. Like usually it's worked out. It's kind of like,
yeah,
right. I mean, that's why agents exist.
Well, and this is the second year in a row they've done that. Now, generally speaking, like every now and then, I think it's okay to go chase after a rental guy that probably isn't going to sign with you, but you think he puts you over the top for a cup. They did it with Gensel last year. He apparently considered signing with them, but then he didn't, and he ends up in Tampa Bay, and now you got the Rantanen thing going on. So tough time to be a Hurricanes fan for like trying to lock down that long-term guy.
Yeah.
And to me, they kind of feel like exactly what they always feel like, which is they're really, really, really good. And then you look at their lineup and it's like, yeah, but when the playoffs come around, I just don't know that they've got enough. So we'll see what happens on that front. I got one person's best thing in sports on the text line is the Masters. Still a minute away from the Masters, but good to know you're excited about it.
The World Cup is my best thing. The 2036 Olympics would be my best thing in sports this week.
Yeah.
Go in.
They're going to be amazing.
Yeah. We've got a lot of best and worst on the text line. Somebody very upset with the Grizzlies. Apparently they've lost 4 in a row, and somebody's very upset.
And some tough ones
with the
too,
Grizzlies.
man. Although Oklahoma City just flat out took it to them.
I mean, OKC, pretty good. 615-737-1025, our phone number. A couple more thoughts to get to on the NFL front. Charles Robinson will be with us at 8 o'clock. Also, Predators made a trade last night. What do we make of the trade, and what more could now be coming with the deadline one day away? We'll get into all that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 our phone number. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. We're joined by Preds assistant coach Derek McKenzie at 7:30. Charles Robinson will be with us at 8 o'clock. We got a lot to get into with Charles with NFL free agency beginning next week. Taking your thoughts on that in the meantime. 615-737-1025. Joe, some trades made this week for the Predators. We talked about Nyquist going from Nashville to Minnesota for a second-round pick in 2026. And last night, Barry Trotz making some more moves. Tommy Novak and Luke Schenn have been traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins in exchange for forward Michael Bunting and a fourth-round pick that the Predators have gotten back as well. So Novak and Schenn out. Michael Bunting, who at the moment is on IR, and we'll see what his availability looks like for the rest of this year or what the Predators' plans are with him moving into next year. But Novak and Schenn gone. Interested to see if Pittsburgh holds on to Schenn and he is a part of their group this year and next year, or if Schenn was acquired by them to then turn around and flip before the deadline tomorrow. But either way, Schenn and Novak are now gone from the Predators. Your thoughts on what Barry Trotz has done to this point with the deadline still a day away here in the NHL?
Yeah, well, so we were talking off the air. Then what would you grade? 'Cause, the Athletic grading trading deadlines. It's like, what would you grade the Preds? They got pretty good return from Nyquist. I mean, Tommy Novak is going to go to Pittsburgh and score like 10 goals before the year ends. He'll go on an absolute tear. Like, that's the most predictable thing ever. I mean, I think that he's done. I think this makes sense. You've talked. Didn't you? Was it yesterday or you brought back your tweet from a few days earlier? Like, he must get rid of Novak. He must.
I said that on Saturday.
Yeah, he said that on Saturday.
Yeah.
So he's done that. Schenn. I mean, people don't have Schenn to beat up on anymore.
They do not.
That poor guy. I know for the media, that's a
huge loss.
A crusher. That's a crusher. But it's like, so it's like the grading of the trading deadline. It's like, it's almost like, give it like a B- or whatever. But because this season's an F, it's kind of like, well, you failed all your tests and you completely flunked out, but you left your workstation really clean. Good job.
Yeah.
Like, the pencils were put away perfectly after you failed the test.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, you have to make the best of the situation that you're in, that you've created, et cetera, et cetera. So it makes sense.
Yeah, like on the surface, the one last night in particular is kind of a weird one. Like, I don't know what their plans are for Michael Bunting here. Like, Bunting, when you take the totality of it, I think he's making $4.5 million a year. I think he's got one more year left on his deal after this one. So you look at next year, and between Novak and Bunting is actually more expensive than Novak is. But when you factor in Novak and Schenn together, then you are having a cap savings at that point. So you clear two contracts out with Schenn and Novak. You bring one $4.5 million contract back in with Bunting. Bunting, when he's healthy, has been okay. Like, he's, a couple years ago, he put up 55 points between Carolina and Pittsburgh. Back in 2022 with Toronto, he had 23 goals and 40 assists for 63 points. He was 26 years old then. He's 30, so it's started to go the other way on in the last couple of years. Some of that's been injury related. So how does he fit into the lineup next year? He's a different type of player than Novak is, for sure. Like, he's a winger, and he is really good at going to retrieve the puck and going to the front of the net. Like, he crashes the net. That's what he does. So you need some of those guys. I'm interested to see how they view that. I saw some Predators fans confused by this last night, and I get the confusion to a certain degree. I will say this, and I'm probably not the right guy to talk about this because I've been screaming about this for 2 years. Novak doesn't fit this lineup, and he hasn't fit this lineup for a long time. Like, I said it heading into the year. The idea that Tommy Novak was going to be the second-line center for this team has always been laughable to me. And I don't think it took them very long to figure out that was not going to work. He is not a second-line center. And quite frankly, if he's not playing in a top six role as a second-line center, I don't know that he's good enough in other roles right now to really be effective in this lineup. Now, to his credit, he started to play better lately. He's scoring some goals lately. Now, Preds are 20 points out of a playoff spot, so it's a little bit too late. But I just think moving forward here, I thought they should have traded him last year at the deadline. We talked about that on the show, particularly when Elliot Friedman was throwing out there that teams might give up a first-round pick for him. I was like, if you get a first-round pick call for Tommy Novak, you better trade him. They didn't do that. I don't know what they ended up getting offered for him. Maybe nobody approached giving him a first-round pick. I have no idea. He signs the deal. The contract itself is really not that bad for Novak, but think about what's happened since then. You had an elevation in the lineup. You had a playoff series where he was a total ghost in that playoff series. It was not effective at all. They started him out this year on a line with Stamkos and Marchessault and put him into a role that he clearly could not handle. And I think it was just time to move on from Novak after that. I don't know. Maybe he goes to Pittsburgh and he blossoms and he's really good. I also think that, and this is a conversation, Joe, that we had last year. I think there are people that think Novak is like 23 years old, and he's not. He'll be 28 in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So how much improvement is really going to happen? I don't think there's going to be a lot. I think he is what he is, which is not a bad player, but I just look at this lineup and where they're at right now, and I just don't know that he's a great fit for it. So
no,
that's where I come down.
you've been consistent all along on him, and it's just, the way it turned out. It was like I understand where they were with everything else. They did some things big, but they didn't have that number 2 center, so it's worth giving him the shot. Didn't work out. Novangelista had a nice little run last year. They had a nice little chemistry for a bit, but Texter says, absolutely terrible trade. No direction of this team. Can't develop young players, and Trotz doesn't know the value of his own roster. Jason Goodlettsville asked, stockpiling draft picks to trade with Buffalo for their center?
People keep talking about Dylan Cousins. I don't really know why you would want Dylan Cousins. Dylan Cousins is signed long-term. He's over $7 million a year. And he's not a very productive player. I get it. He's 24. You're looking for younger centermen. But Dylan Cousins, one of the things you got to ask if the Sabres are moving on from him, why is that? I mean, he's got 31 points. He scored 11 goals in 60 games. Is that worth $7 million a year? I don't really understand the Dylan Cousins stuff.
It's just center desperation.
Yeah,
but
you're
which
hoping
is
it
real.
Changes, but I don't think that that's a great option. Now they got to do something at center. We've talked about that, but the problem is if you're going to trade for a center, unless somebody is just totally at odds with their organization and has demanded a trade, then more than likely, if you're trading for a center, it's because the production is not matching up somewhere and you're taking a shot in the dark on them. A lot of people are going to bring up Elias Pettersson. Elias Pettersson has been a very productive player in the NHL. The past calendar year for Elias Pettersson has been terrible compared to what they're paying him. So you could take a shot. There are a lot of people in Vancouver right now. They're like, this guy has lost it. He does not have it anymore. I don't know if I believe that. Maybe there's a lot of stuff that's going on with him in Vancouver.
Oh yeah.
So,
and even go back to the playoff series against the Preds last year.
He's bad.
He was a ghost himself.
Exactly. So those are the type of guys that you would be going to get. And I don't mind taking a shot on those guys. It's just you have to understand if you're doing that, Pettersson, I think gets paid $11.6 million a year. It's a lot of money to throw a shot at somebody for a year, So I understand you're looking at this and you're asking what the direction is. I would not, I don't know that I'd overpay for a Dylan Cousins. Dylan Cousins to me, I understand it's Buffalo and for whatever reason, they can't get anything to work in Buffalo ever. So maybe a change of scenery comes about and he is a really, really good player. They're paying him a whole lot of money right now to be not that productive of a player.
Texter says, it's the Sabres, Robbie. Just like you said, everyone does better once they leave. Well, I would argue everyone seems to do better once they leave Nashville, too.
Well, I mean, yeah, I understand it's the Sabres. But again, you're talking about a guy that's getting paid over $7 million a year who has 18 goals last season, 47 points. This year he's got 11 and 31 points. And by the way, I get it. It's the Sabres. Sabres got some pretty good players on that roster, and for whatever reason, they could just never win. I, for the life of me, don't understand it.
Yeah, they've been able to actually draft good players, and they're good.
Yeah,
But
and
the
then
team is
they
not.
just perpetually are awful every year. Predators have made some trades. Novak and Shen to Pittsburgh. Nyquist has already been traded to Minnesota earlier in the week, and we're one day away from the deadline. So what do you make of the trades that have been made, and what could still happen for Barry Trotz over the next 24, 36 hours here before the trade deadline? We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle, Visit firsthorizon.com/getitall. Preds assistant coach Derek McKenzie will join us coming up at 7:30. So Novak is out. Luke Shen has been traded to Pittsburgh. Gus Nyquist to Minnesota. So what else could be coming for the Predators? Joe, it looks like a seller's market right now. Some good returns that have been out there. You know, Tampa Bay in particular they're like the LA Rams of the NHL. They do not care about draft picks. We knew the Tanner trade that they gave up all those picks a few years ago. Well, yesterday they gave up 2 first-round picks for Yanni Gourde to come back and Oliver Bjorkstrand, both of which are fine players. Probably an overpayment there by Tampa Bay to go get him. But their general manager, Julien Brisebois, was basically like, yeah, I don't really care about draft picks. I want as many good players as possible to help us go try to win a championship. So that's how they operate there. Bleep those picks. Basically, that's what they're saying. Bleep those picks. So the returns right now are pretty good for some of these trades that we're seeing. Preds have already made moves with 3 guys. What more could we see? You got Michael McCarron that could be available out there. People have asked about Colton Sissons. My thing is, like, somebody's going to have to play center the rest of the year. So how much more trading do you need to do if you're Barry Trotz? We'll see. I would say,
tank it up, baby.
I'd be listening. Tank. If there's the idea out there that continues to float out there that they could get a second-round pick for Michael McCarron. They're talking about that. Like Friedman's talked about that. And I keep saying, like, if you get a second-round pick for Michael McCarron, I'm making that trade all day. And I like Michael McCarron, but he's a 4th-line center. You can find another 4th-line center. I realize he's huge. He wins a lot of face-offs. He's a good penalty killer, all those things, which is why that there's a thought out there that he could go for that. But I don't know that I would hesitate on that if I'm the Predators, if somebody offers you a second-round pick.
If that's the return, yeah, I agree. Now, Jesse brings up a point. He says, moving off Novak Shen now, do you think Sissons and or McCarron still get dealt? These moves might do more harm than good. I like McCarron. So, again, if it's like a return where you're like, oh, geez, okay, well, I can't turn it down, then – and, Sissons, how old is Sissons now? I mean, he's been a stalwart for this franchise.
He's not as old as some would think. I think he's probably 30, 31. Let me see. 31. Yeah.
Gosh, good. It's always good when, like, you're surprised by how young someone is,
Yeah. He's been around forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, what's the return there? I mean, I tend to agree. Like, you still want some, solid core players in your lineup, right?
Somebody's got to play center.
Yeah. Someone's got to, deal everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta, and of course, obviously, the high price guys are back. I mean, they're
not going anywhere.
So we, that, but
big one's O'Reilly. I don't think he's going anywhere either. Like, no. I talk about the market being high. So look, maybe there's a chance it's between now and tomorrow. Somebody calls Barry Trotz and is like, we have to have Ryan O'Reilly, and we're going to do whatever it takes to land him. And I think you owe it to yourself to listen to that. If you're Barry Trotz, I think it's gonna take a lot for somebody to get O'Reilly.
Like, what's a lot?
I think it would probably be a first-round pick and like a high-level prospect for Barry Trotz to consider it.
Yeah, that's high. Neil here says, let's trade him for a first-rounder. I think you need to get a proven hockey player as well. Or like a
if
prospect.
It's purely a first-rounder, Barry Trotz won't do it. Because, think about the teams that would be willing to give up a first-rounder for O'Reilly. It's not going to be at the top of the draft.
They're not high picks.
And he already has 3 first-round picks for this next year. So it's going to take more than a first-round pick to get O'Reilly, which is why I don't think it's going to happen. Like, I think O'Reilly is going to be here.
Yeah, you got to have some blend of, having hockey players and picks.
You do. Let's head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Bob to the program. Bob, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Good morning, guys. I've got a question. If you guys were Barry Trotz, what would you do? Would you make any more moves, or would you stand pat at the deadline? Thank you.
Yep, thanks for the call, Bob. I think it just depends on the offer. Like, Sissons is a very valuable player for them. They really like Colton Sissons, and he's got some term left on his deal. He's not very expensive. So, like, Colton Sissons can continue to be a useful player for them for the next few years here. But what's the offer? Like, what is somebody offering for Colton Sissons? Like I said, McCarron, like if somebody offers you a 2nd-round pick for Michael McCarron, I'm making that trade. I'm doing it. And look, I understand that like Michael McCarron's size doesn't grow on trees, but you can find a 4th-line center if you're the Predators. That's not really what I'm worried about if I'm Nashville. It's like, how do you set yourself up for finding some answers offensively this offseason? The one thing I'll say is they have opened up some cap room here to where they can do some things this offseason if the opportunity presents itself. And they're going to have to, obviously. It's not worked this year. So they're going to have to change this thing up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, there's a limit to that. There's a limit to what you can change. A lot of next year is really going to be just hope that all these guys. I saw Alex Doherty put out the tweet on like the core guys and their production last year to this year. It's basically cut in half.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of it is like just hope that guys rebound, but also how do you help them rebound? Are there elements to this lineup that,
right.
And obviously if you can get another centerman in there who can play, that you would think would be a big help.
Well, now what are you doing on defense moving forward too?
Yeah, there's that too. Kind of a problem.
Like I realized Luke Shen took some crap, and he was not the world's best defenseman. I actually thought he's fine this year. Like I don't think Luke Shen was near the top of their list of problems this year. But now moving forward, you got Yossi, you got Shea, and beyond that, it's just a bunch of young guys. Now I think Molendijk is probably going to be up next
coming.
year. Like,
He's coming.
probably going to be. He's probably going to be on the team next year based on the way that things are going right now. But then you got to piece together everything else around that. Like their defense core right now is in rough shape. So they got to fix that.
Talk about a change, over time, but still.
It's quite something.
Like Craig says, would you use all 3 first-round picks to try to trade some of the picks for a real first or second-line center? The problem is, Craig, like no one trades real first or second. No, like they don't trade those guys.
And to answer the question, like I would entertain trading the first-round picks that you're getting this year from Tampa and Vegas. I'm not trading yours. I mean, it can end up being the top 3 pick. I'm not trading that.
Hopefully, that's your center for the future.
Exactly. So I'm definitely not trading that pick. We'll be joined by Predators assistant coach Derek McKenzie coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode. Preds back in action tonight at Bridgestone Arena, taking on the Seattle Kraken. To help us talk about that, we head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in Predators assistant coach Derek McKenzie to the program. Derek, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing good, guys. How you doing?
Doing great, man. Appreciate you taking time to be with us. So, Derek, this is always an interesting week every year, really, regardless of what the standings look like. You were a player in the league for a long time. So I'm just curious, from your playing days, what was this week like heading up to trade deadline week, and how do you take that experience of going through it as a player and apply that to your experience as a coach now?
Yeah, I mean, you certainly can appreciate what they're going through, and I think every guy in the locker room probably has a slightly different feeling going into it. I mean, it's unfortunately it's part of the business. You could be a guy where your contract's up at the end of the year, and you might be looking for an opportunity somewhere else. There's guys who are a lot older that are in the dressing room that might be thinking about this as their last chance to make a Stanley Cup run. There's young guys in there that are, am I going to be a part of a trade, or am I going to get a bigger opportunity or less of an opportunity, depending on does the team load up, or do they get rid of a couple pieces? So a bunch of mixed emotions. Universally, I think when it ends, there's a breath of fresh air. I think everyone just wants it to be over, is kind of that feeling. And so just going into today, appreciate that. I mean, friends get moved, buddies get moved that you're battling with and going to war with. And so a lot going on, just keeping focused. That's why we have game day routines and game day skates, just kind of flush out not only the legs, but the mind a little bit, and then get ready for the Kraken tonight.
So Tommy Novak moving on. Derek, obviously a guy who, has done some good things here. Maybe didn't work out exactly, the way he wanted or you guys wanted. How would you assess, this season for him and what's ahead for him now?
Well, I mean, that's a pretty good example of a guy that, could probably use maybe a fresh look. And I mean, listen, Tommy's a very skilled, good hockey player that, has shown, signs of being a consistent top six center in the league, at moments. I think he's got to go, he's got to move on and find some consistency in his game. And I think that'll kind of be how things play out for him over the next year or two, is that, can he grab that spot and kind of solidify himself as a guy that, teams, not only can count on every night, but can win with, or is he going to kind of teeter in that area? And unfortunately, if that's the case in this league, then you probably find yourself on 4 or 5 teams throughout your career. But listen, he was a great guy here, and I know the guys loved him a lot, and wish him all the best.
Well, on the Shen front too, Derek, obviously, one of the most popular guys in the league amongst the players, and it doesn't take long, even for a guy like me doing a journalist job, walking in the room to realize how much he's beloved in there, how popular he is. So just from a leadership void, how do you try to overcome that with Shen being gone and just the leadership you've got in the room?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways to spin it, but I mean, I think what we should all do is probably take it a little bit personally, in the sense that, unfortunately, when you're in the situation that we're in, you lose, pieces to your team. You lose leaders, you lose friends, you lose those guys that you enjoyed coming to the rink with every day. And obviously that was the case with Luke in the dressing room. And someone felt like they, could, better use his services at this point. And I think that's, kind of mentioned it. He's a guy that's obviously on the back nine and had a great career, and maybe he'll have a better opportunity to win short term somewhere else, and I'm sure that'll be the case for him.
When you guys are in a situation like this, and of course, all of you guys have been through probably every possible scenario as a player or coach in this league, but do you, as a coaching staff, are you guys talking a little bit more about maybe younger guys getting guys looks, even possibly, some guys who right now are in Milwaukee who may get an opportunity here soon?
Yeah, I mean, I think as coaches, first and foremost, we kind of we coach the players that we're kind of given. At the same time, it's been a great kind of relationship here as far as, bouncing things off each other, and obviously Barry, being so quickly removed from coaching, I think he can kind of appreciate having that cohesiveness between the two, so that that we try to get these kids in the right spots at the right time. So yeah, I mean, you look at a guy like Svechkov, obviously, he's a guy that we've been, quietly trying to give some minutes, give some bigger opportunities to. And then, with Novak vacating, I mean, that would be something that, we'll be, closely monitoring, in the fact that, you don't want to, give him too much. Not that he can't handle it, but there is a process for these young guys, and then just making sure that we're on top of guys like that, so that they stay in their wheelhouse as far as ice time and opportunity, so that they just continue to move forward.
Derek, specifically for a guy like Evangelista here, what about the opportunity with him? We saw him with Stamkos and O'Reilly the other night. Obviously, those three had a really good game the other night, but what do you make of the opportunity for a guy like Evangelista that's dealt with some injuries this year that he's had to battle through, and now seems to be on the other side of that and is playing with some pretty good players?
Yeah, I really liked his last few games. Again, it's been difficult trying to put that puzzle together this year, and it's been hard on guys, and he's an example of that. You obviously bring in a couple right-hand shots, some bona fide, top six guys that are obviously going to play in those situations. So he's kind of had to buy his time a little bit, and then you mix the injury in there. And it's kind of like, he's probably an example, a little bit of what's kind of resonated through our team. Obviously, things are down for production-wise for a lot of guys, and it just happened to be one of those things that kind of snowballed. And saying that's what makes this league so great and so difficult, is that the guys who can find their way out of these situations are the guys that obviously last and become stars in this league. And I think, I agree with you. I hope, Luke's kind of getting past that and these last two games, and then kind of stepping up in the timing of it. I mean, it's an intimidating spot to be as a young kid when you have O'Reilly and Stamkos on the ice, and I thought he did a really good job of managing that the last two games.
Well, Derek, we really appreciate your time. Good luck tonight against Seattle, and we will talk to you soon here.
All right, guys. Appreciate it.
Predators assistant coach Derek McKenzie, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Preds in action tonight, taking on the Kraken. It is this is a weird week, just in terms of everybody knows, heading into this week that there's going to be some movement. Like we talked to Nyquist, whenever that was, their last home game, I guess last Thursday, and it's deadline's next week, and then he got traded, 36 hours later.
And he knew it was coming.
He knew it was coming. It's a very strange week. And today, you're walking in there and that a guy like Stamkos, Luke Shin and him are obviously really tight. They played together, won cups together in Tampa Bay. Their families are really good friends with each other. Now he's gone. So there's the human side of it. And then in the back of your mind, if you're a guy like McCarron today or Sissons, it's well, number one, am I playing tonight? Am I going to get traded tomorrow? Is this my last game in Nashville? It's a weird day in there.
Yeah. No matter what, traded, not, whatever, someone leaves, someone you thought was going to leave, doesn't leave. Obviously, what your team is. My team is on the ice from tomorrow on, and then it's okay, fine. Now you don't have to worry about this stuff anymore. Real quick, Josh from Lebanon asks, who do you think from Milwaukee will be in a Predator sweater the rest of the season? We talked about Kimmel off air.
Yeah, I think Kimmel will be up here pretty soon. I just think it makes a lot of sense to give him a look and see what you've got. I think they're bringing up Weisblatt today, so it looks like Weisblatt is going to be in there tonight in the short term. I mean, the thing is, on defense, they've had a lot of guys that have come up, so
that's basically what
what it's been and what it is right now. So I think you'll see that. But Kimmel's the big one. I think it's getting a look at him the rest of the year and seeing what he is. LaRue participated in the morning skate the other day, so hopefully he's close to coming back. I think when you're going through a situation like this, one of the silver linings can be, all right, well, elevate Svechkov, see how he handles it. Elevate LaRue, see how he handles it. Evangelista playing with I'd leave Evangelista with O'Reilly and Stamkos the rest of the year and see how he handles it, where you can get a good look of kind of what you're dealing with some of your younger guys heading into the offseason. But Kimmel's the big one. I don't think it'll be too long before Kimmel's up. And then when the regular season's over, send it back down, and he plays for the playoffs in Milwaukee and see what he does.
And then we can really get into some Milwaukee sports talk.
Rexrode's favorite time of year, baby.
Oh, man.
Admirals playoff runs. We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports will be with us at 8 o'clock. We got a lot to get into with Charles. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Say something and then something else happens, then to still like they were lying all along, like they were lying, they lied. And it's like, well, sometimes what happens is, I think especially with this owner, is the owner changes their mind. I think we've seen that. But in his mind, they're lying. They just lie. He's hoping that they're lying now. I mean, I am too. But in all seriousness, there are people who still like, hey, Steve, stop doing those Mayo commercials. You might play some quarterback. I mean, see, there's me just yelling for no reason. Now I get it. Uber guy. Don't leave us, Uber guy.
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode, with a song that always puts me in a better mood when we hear it.
Oh,
Joseph, the floor is yours.
It almost ruins their entire fantastic 60s catalog. Not quite, but it's close. It's actually very fitting, Keezer, that you ran that little clip of me because that's part of what I want to talk about today. Someone tweeted at me last night, and it was one of those like, you know, someone just makes up an account, a burner, like 0 followers, 0. It's like just out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So it's probably like Chase making up an account. But it was like, you really need to learn mic control. It's been deleted now, so it makes me even think even more that it was Chase. Maybe Chase and Big Joe together. You know, you really need to learn mic control. Like you're constantly yelling and like your volume's going up and down. And I'm like, I mean, I'm going to take this as constructive criticism. So I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been trying to like not yell today. We got the Uber driver saying that we yell too much. Again, it's not we, it's me, right? I'm the one who. So this is the rant. So I think I need to try to do these rants. I don't care what PK says. A little more calmly.
Peacefully?
Yeah, a little more peacefully.
Yeah.
Although then, as we're going into this, you open up Twitter and you got, this Captain Vol. Can I just read this real quick? This is not the rant, but this is a Vol Twitter person who has a lot of followers. So some people. He says, the quiet part out loud. Tennessee has 3 coaches on campus that are entirely incapable of ever winning a championship, but they all 3 keep you so close that you can't do anything about it. Dude, the women's basketball coach has been here a minute, had a kid, and is way overachieved and beat UConn this year.
Now she can't win a championship.
I mean, look, Rick Barnes obviously.
Quick hook. You're gracious.
My God. And again, this is obviously a reaction to the Vols losing at a very good, like a ranked top 25 caliber team on the road in the SEC by 2 points. It's too bad. If you want a 1 seed, you got to win those games. But like, that's the reaction. I mean, like the need, especially with Rick Barnes. Look, the guy's never won a championship. He's been to 1 Final Four. So I get it. I mean, like the history tells you that maybe March isn't going to go as well as you want. But also, he got the program to their second Elite 8 in the history of the program last year. And frankly, if they weren't playing Purdue in a home game, I mean, that team was a Final Four caliber team. I can't wait till he leaves. And then I want to talk to every single one of you when you see what happens. Like, you do not appreciate what he's done with the program. That's not what the rant is. And by the way, you might be right on hypo. I don't know. We'll see. But that's a dumb text.
We'll see.
Or a dumb tweet. So what I want to calmly, without changing my volume, or without saying the word like. Josh says I've been saying like a lot. I got a lot of issues, obviously. Apparently people are starting to realize that I suck at broadcasting. But I do want to talk about, Ed and the people like that in the Titans fan base who, look, I love the variety of opinions. You're all welcome to your opinion. But I just want you to really think about another year of absolute misery. I think sometimes you fast forward in your mind. You're like, yeah, just do this, and then we'll suck next year, and then we'll be ready for the quarterback next year. I want you to just think about the process of living your life on a weekly basis and going through each week, and then in camp, talking yourself into your team being good. And each week, going through the process of following a team that already has given you multiple years in a row of misery, and now you want a Mac Jones, Will Levis, a Jameis Winston, Will Levis combo at quarterback. And I want you to think about living through that year. I'm not going to yell at you about it. I'm going to keep the same volume, okay?
I could handle it if it was Jameis. There's enough entertainment value to get through it if it's Jameis.
Someone did ask on the text line earlier today, like, can you imagine, like PK and Jameis? I actually think that PK and Jameis would probably
I think it would go very well.
enjoy the heck out of each other.
I think so too. I think it would go well. Like I said, Jameis I could handle because I think there would be enough entertainment value both in the press conference setting, but also on the field. Like he's going to throw some pretty horrific interceptions. Like it's going to be, and then he's going to make some great plays. Like I think the entertainment value would be high. The Mac Jones Will Levis QB combo room really makes me violently ill. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about the Jacoby Brissett Will Levis quarterback combo room. I don't know if I can make it through that.
Jacoby Brissett, man, that's a tough one. Again, like he's solid and he's a heck of a pro and all these things, but my goodness. Neil Down says another issue that you have, Joe, is that you were dumb. Neil Down is, of course, Big Joe, continuing to try to get me. What he tried today was he tried, I said my best in sports because I'm very excited about Vanderbilt, Tennessee in the SEC tournament at 10 a.m. women's basketball, an hour after our show ends. This is what Neil Down wrote. He said, sorry, but the worst thing in sports every week is women's basketball. Less than 1,500 people went to the game yesterday in the SEC tournament. No one cares. And so, of course, in his mind, he's like, that'll
Joe.
Get
him going.
That'll trigger Joe.
Which usually it would.
But unfortunately, Neil Down, Gabe O, and I won't say the rest of the last name of that one. I'm on to you, bro. You're screwed. So you better get a new phone or else it's never going to work again. Ha, 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 ha.
It'll work again.
Adam in Portland says, haters going to hate. One man's trashy broadcaster is another man's favorite.
That's
Your
right.
number one fan, Adam. Thank you, Adam. Next time that people rip you when you come on our show, I will yell at them.
That's right. That's right. Adam takes some crap on the text line. He takes some crap.
There's people say I wouldn't mind seeing Winston's. Okay.
I mean, I'm talking purely entertainment value. That's the only thing I'm discussing. I'm not talking wins because you're not going to get very many of those. But I am talking entertainment value.
No, I mean, listen. But look, if you want to talk about us and you want to talk about I think for the Titans' sake, I'm pro Darnold. I think that the Titans could do good things with Sam Darnold. If you want to talk about for us, then yeah, go draft Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. Draft Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, right, yeah. Like there's a personal thing here that sometimes does not match up with the team needs. I'm just trying to think of the team. And I'm trying to think of Titans fans. I don't think you guys want that. I don't think you want the weekly experience. Don't you want something at quarterback that gives you hope?
We'll find out. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports will be with us coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you on this Thursday morning. And as we do every Thursday morning at 8 o'clock, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in our friend Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. Charles, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, gents. How you guys doing?
Doing awesome.
Super.
A lot of stuff going on around here right now. Got NHL trading deadline, free agency, a lot of stuff.
I heard it's the gentle rant with Joe Rexrode now.
Yeah, doesn't have
You
the same
like
pop
that?
to it.
I love it. I love that you're getting told to tone down. I'm sorry I deleted that account I made so quickly.
Oh, yeah.
That makes sense, actually.
We're going to talk about how the Jordan Schultz picture made it out last week. We didn't do it, Charles, but I saw the picture circulating around out there.
I don't know, man.
Yeah. All right. I mean, we can go ahead and reveal that I had that picture, but I was not the one who put it out there.
You were not?
So I was not. And after I got out, I went immediately, I kind of got questioned a little bit, and then by the person who took the picture, and eventually found out that they had sent it to like 750 people.
It's like, well, there you go.
So did they go around asking all those people, are you the one? It's like, dude, if you're going to send it to everybody, what do you think is going to happen? Typical media people, man.
Yeah. Great moments in time. Gotta love it.
Good stuff. So on the Sam Darnold front, Minnesota has not tagged him, and apparently they're still working on a short-term deal, but we'll see. Paul Kuharsky was with us yesterday, and he said he does not expect the Titans to pursue Sam Darnold as it relates to going after a long-term deal with him. So what's the latest on Sam Darnold, and how do you expect this to play out when free agency opens up?
So I've talked to a number of people across the league, as well as agents who have skin in the game at the quarterback position, just trying to figure out how the slotting is going to go. And, Darnold's really the prominent conversation right now. And I'm just telling you, the feel is that his market is going to be softer than anybody thought. And the idea of him returning to Minnesota, I mean, that might be the odds-on favorite right now for him to get a short-term deal done with the Vikings. Now, you got to take this at least slightly with a grain of salt, because what changes in the matrix when they don't tag him is you potentially have a team out there that's sitting there and was like, maybe we'd be interested, but he's not available. If he's available, then let's kick around the conversation in our building. So it's like, is there this mystery team out there that could potentially open up for him? And so I kind of asked around, like, okay, other than the suitors that are obvious, who could this mystery team be? And I actually had a couple people who said, hey, I don't be surprised the Raiders pursue a trade for Geno Smith if they can't get, if they can't get one of the options they really want at quarterback. Pete loves Geno, like total, culture type guy. Feels like Geno's still got a couple, good years left in him. And, don't be surprised if that is something that the Raiders potentially pursue. Well, then what happens in Seattle at the quarterback spot? Is that all of a sudden the mystery spot that opens up and maybe provides an opportunity for Sam Darnold to sign, the kind of market deal that we thought he could potentially get? But if that doesn't happen, I'm just telling you, everybody seems to believe that it's going to be a soft pursuit for him, that there's not going to be this, $40 million a year deal with, $120 million, guaranteed, or, $100 million guaranteed. Like a lot of people think it's going to come down to maybe his number is more in the range of like 30. And there are a couple of teams that are willing to do that, but really the deals they're offering are structurally just 2-year deals. And at that point, Sam Darnold has to sit there and go, okay, well, I might be able to go back to Minnesota for 30 for, even if it's for a year, it's a better option than maybe, going to a bad team that does not have the firepower, does not have Kevin O'Connell, does not have the familiarity of, if it's a different offensive scheme. There's just a multitude of different things that could push him back to Minnesota. And a lot of people seem to think that's ultimately what's going to end up happening. Now, again, it's speculation right now because the Giants are desperate. Like the Giants are like, they have to figure out a way to get a quarterback in the building that wins games in 2025. That's why they made the big push for Stafford, because they're sitting there going, we're going to get fired. And so my thought process on this is, if the Giants are sitting there and saying there's no way we can get up to 1 and get Cam Ward, and we can have the whole Cam Ward Shador conversation, I still won't put it out of the realm of possibility that they could be left with so few options that they're sitting there going, you know what, let's just offer him, the $40 million a year deal. We'll do the guarantees that are a little more robust than 2 years. Maybe guarantee some of the salary the third year. And, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't matter anyway, because we're not going to be here, and we're not really going to worry about the money because we're not going to be here. Like, that's what I wonder is if, Darnold does have kind of a soft market, but there's a team that doesn't really have any other options and gets desperate, then it's a little bit of a different situation. I don't think Paul Kaharski's wrong. I think PK's right. I do think that, it depends like where the number is. If all of a sudden, Darnold's number is much softer than people thought, then maybe there's, a conversation where they entertain potentially signing him. But I think personally, I think Fitz bad. He really cannot play behind an offensive line right now that is not stacked right now. You're asking for a world of problems putting Sam Darnold behind an offensive line that's in flux and that you don't know, that we all thought was going to be much better in 2024, and it wasn't. And we expect and hope, right, it'll be better in 2025, but who knows? And you want to see the Jets Sam Darnold, go back and watch the Rams game, in the playoffs. Like Detroit, we've talked about this before. He just missed things, and this is assessment inside the Vikings building. He just missed opportunities, but the Rams game, he panicked, and it was because he was getting hit, and the Rams were just, pile driving him. If he goes to a team where that's the situation, he's going to be a bad signing. It's going to be a nightmare. So I think that's also, you really have to consider fit as well for him. And I think he knows he has to consider fit as well. And that's why I think both the Vikings and Darnold are leaving that door open. They just didn't want to pay him $40 million. They didn't want to lock up, on the tag, they didn't want to lock up $40 million in one season. There's a way to, bring him back economically and maybe even give themselves an option of a second year to bring him back as well. And I think JJ McCarthy is a little bit of a wild card right now. He lost a lot of weight after the first surgery and then the cleanup. So it's like, and I've heard he's, put the weight back on, but he functionally just lost a lot of time and the snaps, the time, the practice time. It's a lot more uncertain, I think, with JJ McCarthy right now than maybe the Vikings were hoping for.
Yeah, I just think much more of Sam Darnold than the rest of the league does. I mean, I'd love to know if he was just okay in those two games. Like they lose them both, but he's not bad. Because
they had
the other film on him from last year, there's a lot of good stuff.
There is a lot of good stuff. There is, but remember, again, you are asking yourself, like, I'm here. I heard that. And again, take this with a grain of salt. I don't know how true this is because I don't have the headset on, right? But I heard that, part of the reason why you're getting Darnold to the line of scrimmage quickly, like you're working to try and get him the line of scrimmage quickly, is kind of what like McVay does in Los Angeles, where he's like diagnosing what the defense is doing and yelling it into the headset before the headset goes dead. So basically, like you got the coach reading the defense and trying to tell you before, who or a coordinator, whoever's the one that's in the mic in the headset, which is, that's interesting. And again, I think Darnold showed he can be a high level quarterback, but there has to be a lot of perfection around him. And I'm not saying the Vikings offensive line is perfect. It wasn't. They had their lumps last year, lost your left tackle. But again, those last two games were just, that sticks in the minds of evaluators because by far the totality of Sam Darnold's film looks more like those last two games where he's he's either, not making the reads that he needs to make, or he's shorting things, or his accuracy is not where it needs to be. Or the second game against that's the Detroit game. The second game against the Rams, he's running around and, driving himself into pressure, drifting into pressure, run away from things that aren't happening. It's just so much of that, I think, evoked a very strong response amongst people who are sitting there going, okay, still an option, but let's make sure we protect ourselves and not, run out there with the Baker Mayfield plus deal that I think a lot of people thought he was going to get.
So on the Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward front, obviously there's a lot of talk this week about Sanders and the combine and potentially not helping himself at the combine. Where do you think things stand on that with Shedeur? And when it comes to Cam Ward, how much interest do you think is going to be there to trade with the Titans for that number 1 overall pick?
So I think Shedeur is going to be the story of the draft. I really, truly do. I think that we're going to have these arguments about Shedeur, and there are things that are going to come out as we go on. People being rubbed the wrong way about how he interviewed. Is he arrogant? How many times is he going to invoke the Sanders name and being Deion's son? And I was raised in this, I was raised to be this guy. I even had, during the combine, I had a GM. I didn't actually see it, but apparently there was a moment where some broadcast, they asked Shedeur to describe his 5 most iconic moments, in college or whatever. And and I guess one of them was he's describing the watch moment, the watch taunt or whatever. And, this guy's just come on, is anybody trying to work with him to try and, pull his back a little bit? But to me, these are garden variety gripes. Realistically, it's, people are always annoyed by, I had a guy complain about Kayvon Thibodeau walking out of a meeting and grabbing a bag of chips off the table.
Another chip grabber. This chip grabbing is an epidemic. It really is.
Yeah. And so you're does this really matter when push comes to shove? No, it doesn't. But I think what's more important is I definitely feel, and I'm not a quarterback evaluator, but when I talk to the people who I trust across the league who evaluate quarterbacks, they're look, they're 2 different shelves. Those guys are not, the evaluation with Cam is much better, particularly when you're considering the upside and where he can go versus where Shedeur is at. Shedeur's, I think teams consider him a lesser athlete than Cam. I think they have some questions about, times where they felt is he not throwing the ball away because he's maintaining a high completion percentage? Why is he eating some of these sacks? His arm isn't as good as Cam's arm. And then the thing that I think is really overriding about Cam, and I think this is fascinating, particularly if, let's say you're the Titans and you have Mike Borgonzi, who sat there and watched Patrick Mahomes for years. Everyone in the AFC is hyper aware, especially when they don't have quarterbacks. They're hyper aware of we're in the Everest conference. The quarterbacks that we have to, determine a solution for are insane. I mean, all the best, all these great Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes,
Josh
Herbert. And it's so when you're going out and you're looking at a quarterback, you definitely in your mind, you're thinking either they are the perfect scheme fit for us and we can take them places that other people can't. That's Bo Nix. That's how Sean Payton looked at it. He's hey, he's perfect for me. That's what I need. I can compete with this guy. Or you're looking at him and you're saying the upside is uncapped. The upside is so tremendous that's the swing you take, because we're going to run into Mahomes in the playoffs. We're going to run into Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. We're going to run into Justin Herbert in the playoffs. We're going to all these other quarterbacks we're going to run into in the playoffs. And we have to be prepared to, compete with those guys. You don't take the one where you feel the upside is sort of more capped. And I think that is part of the assessment with Cam that is going to be fascinating to see where he ends up going in the draft, because of the fact that there's a feeling that his upside is much more capped than where Cam Ward's is.
So just to follow up real quick then on Shedeur, Charles, Do you feel, because I've seen some people say this week, gosh, he might really fall. Do you feel like he's the quarterback who plummets this year, and if so, how far?
This is what I think makes him the story of the draft, because I think he is a good scheme fit for the Cleveland Browns. So some people are like, I can't, especially after coming out of the combine, some people are like, I can't believe people are still looking at like Cam, Ward, and Shedeur 1-2 in the draft, in whatever scenario that is. Say it's the Giants trading up to 1 or whatever. But like Cam going off 1 and Shedeur going off 2, I can't discount that could happen, because I've talked to people at the Browns. They're not as worried about Dion, this idea that if something goes sideways, you're going to have the megaphone of Dion, calling out your head coach or your coordinators or your players or whatever. I don't think they're concerned with that. At least that's what I had that whole conversation with someone in the organization. I definitely walked away thinking, okay, they're not worried about the Dion thing. I do think he's a good fit for Kevin Stefanski's offense. I think he's built to play in that kind of weather. He's also tough, can take hits. Like so he can play in the AFC North. So I think the fit there, that's kind of where you come down to, like with Bo Nix, when everyone's like, well, geez, Bo Nix is going to slide. And like, he's not even a first round pick. You heard that last year leading into the draft. Teams are like, he's not a first round pick.
I thought he was a 4th round pick. My God.
Okay. But he's a first round pick with Sean. That's the thing. That's the thing.
Right.
When you have a coach who sits there and says, you're perfect for me, and that coach is right. Like, Sean has that element of confidence and arrogance where he's like, that's my guy. I don't care what anybody else. He throws up middle fingers to the rest of the league and says, if it works for me, I'm good. And then we saw the results of that. And so I think if you have Kevin Stefanski sitting there looking at Shedeur and saying, yeah, he fits exactly what we want to do. He's going to run a real efficient offense here. He's going to have a high percentage, completion percentage, all these different things. Then you can see him going at 2. Could he slide? Yes. And again, this is why I say he's the story of the draft, because I do think that a lot of teams do not view him as being anywhere near worthy. Like I had one GM who's like, look, he's not telling me his stack. They don't need a quarterback anyway, but he's like, I'm telling you right now, when you start to do the shelves and you're really looking at guys, he said the distance between, like, let's say the assessment on Cam and Shedeur is much wider than the distance between my assessment on Shedeur and like Jackson Dart or even the Louisville kid. And so it's like, okay, I mean, it just feels like there's clearly a separation here. And that's what I think could end up leading to him maybe trickling down the board or going off at 2. And that mystery to me is what's going to be really what drives this into. It's in some ways it's similar to Levis. You kind of went into that draft and you're like, man, there's still some people who think that the Colts are taking him, and then he ends up being a 2nd round pick. So it's going to be a really, really interesting run up to this whole deal.
Charles, do you think Aaron Rodgers has a landing spot as a starting quarterback in this league in free agency this year?
I do. Yeah, again, I think like the Giants, the interesting thing about the Giants is that desperation is so real. I've heard Russell Wilson is on their list of options. I've heard Aaron Rodgers is on their list of options. And it's just sort of like, when do they run out of, options? But I think another thing that's interesting is like Pittsburgh, Omar Khan, the GM there, I think Pittsburgh, they really want to get something done with Justin Fields. That's like a moderate short-term deal to give him a more realistic run at potentially being their starting quarterback. That might not get done though, because, Fields is sitting there saying, I want a clear path to starting. Like, I don't want to be here and go through what I went through last year, which was Mike Tomlin deciding Russ is my guy and stubbornly sticking to that. Even though Arthur Smith, I think during the course of the season, there were times where Arthur Smith was really struggling to, I don't think that connection was as great as it looked on the surface all the time. So if Justin Fields doesn't work out for Pittsburgh, then you're like, all right, what are you doing? Because I don't think Russ is going to be back there. So now you don't have Justin Fields, you don't have Russ, but you do have Mike Tomlin, and Rodgers and Tomlin have a very, very strong affinity for each other. They like each other a lot. And so then I think, does he all of a sudden become an option in Pittsburgh? So much of this is predicated on like whether some of these deals get done, like with the quarterbacks where they currently could go back. Fields, Darnold goes back to Minnesota. It all started with Stafford sticking with the Rams. Like that's sort of, you sit there and you look at the pegging order and you're like, this guy's got to get done. That was Stafford. He got done. Okay. Now we move on to Darnold. What hole does Darnold fill? And then what does that open up elsewhere in terms of options? So yeah, I think Rodgers he's going to have some interest. And if you look at the quarterback needy teams, someone made this point to me yesterday. The strength is definitely in the hands of the quarterbacks right now because there's just not enough of them to go around. When you actually look at the quarterback needy teams, there are fewer really solid options to fill these spots than you think. But the thing for these quarterbacks, none of these landing spots look great. There's just a lot of bad teams.
All right, last thing, Charles, DK Metcalf. Well, you just mentioned Pete Carroll trading for Geno Smith. Pete Carroll trade for the combo.
Yeah.
Just bring him to Vegas. Is this happening?
Yeah. Well, I think I would say you should put the Raiders squarely in the DK Metcalf sweepstakes. The two factors here are you going to be willing to give up the draft compensation, which I saw Diana reported the first and the third. That's what they're going to be asking for. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's the price tag. I don't know that they'll get that.
That's high.
That is high. Yeah. I could see it potentially being something like, okay, when you add up the pieces and the parts, it comes out to what you would consider first round compensation. So maybe a team says, okay, we have like a second and a player or a second and a combination of other picks that really is first round value. But this, first off, I think a lot of people are going to be in this. Okay. I think DK's got a very strong trade market out there. There are going to be a multitude of teams that have the money. Like the Chargers are definitely looking to add to, their receiving options for Justin Herbert. They have a ton of money. The Raiders have a ton of money. I think Pete absolutely be interested. The Patriots are going to be huge spenders, have the most money, most cap space available. And I think DK is young enough that even though they're not in a Super Bowl window, they would be okay saying, okay, if we can get him at the right draft compensation, we'll trade for him and give Drake May a great piece to help him develop over the next 3 years. Because I kind of think that's the way people are going to approach it with DK. He's going to sign he wants a $30 million plus average. I would say look at the Brandon Ayuk deal, build off that. 4 years, $31 million a year, and then be okay offering like guarantees into the third year because he's young enough that you can do that. That's going to give him a very robust market. Another team I can't count out, Pittsburgh's just trying to get a wide receiver forever. And they had both draft compensation and a contract ready to go for Brandon Ayuk. And Brandon Ayuk was like, nah, I'm going to go back to San Francisco. And Ayuk was seeking the deal that he got in San Francisco. So again, I would put Pittsburgh, squarely in that. But the problem in Pittsburgh is who's your quarterback? Like you got to figure out who your quarterback is before you put yourself really in those sweepstakes. But yeah, he's going to have, his market is going to bang. And they might get more than I think in terms of the draft compensation. I doubt it's a first and a third, but just the multitude of teams that are going to be in on this. I think I would say New England's strong. I think the Broncos probably poke around at it. Obviously, the Packers are out there. They definitely, I think, are interested in finding number one because
he's going to look great in Green Bay.
Their running back is apparently the GM. That's what they need. The Steelers, the Raiders. It's no shortage of teams that I think could come to the table. And I would also keep an eye on those teams that have a first round pick, but it's like, the bottom 3 or 4 picks in the first round. I'd look at those teams too and not necessarily toss them out.
God, don't tell me he's going to end up in Philadelphia. We can't handle that.
I want to say no, but how he's like, hey, Saquon, he's an extension. Zach Bond, we're going to keep you. Like, I'm just like, dude, what? Like, I thought for sure. I'm like, yeah, they're going to pay the price. They're going to lose all these defensive players. They're going to lose Bond. They got a multitude of other guys that are coveted, and that how he's still, I don't know what's going on there, man. That's like the biggest, like, we're going to find out one day that, how he's going to retire and the Ponzi scheme is going to end, and there's going to be a bill for like $3 billion. He's charging all this on the black Amex.
Yeah. Charles, really good stuff, man. Excited to get into free agency with you next week. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next Thursday.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, guys. Take care.
Yep. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports, our guest on Robby and Rexrode. We'll react to what Charles had to say coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Tune in to 93.3 FM Totally Hits Nashville tonight for MTSU men's basketball. Blue Raiders taking on Liberty at the Murphy Center. Tip-off at 6:30, pregame at 6 o'clock. Huge game. Coverage also available on the Totally Hits Nashville app and at totallyhitsnashville.com. Appreciate Charles Robinson for being with us in the last segment. Joe, what did you make of Charles's breakdown there of, we'll start with Sam Darnold, and maybe the insinuation that the market for him may not be as robust as some thought heading into free agency?
Yeah. I mean, look, it matches up with PK's reporting. And by the way, he said he believes it. And it sounds like the Titans are, like a lot of teams, skeptical of Sam Darnold, right? Like and look, that does align with the Vikings not tagging him. It's the Vikings, because I really thought that there'd be somebody who would look at what he did and say, yeah, let's, again, not break the bank, but we can review the 50 million plus quarterbacks if you like in this league. But the Vikings are like, no, we're not paying 40 for him. No, thanks.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll get him back at 32. I don't know. I like Sam Darnold better than the NFL, and I stand with Jared and Gentry.
How's that feel?
This feels great. The Jared Gen Joe. Sam Darnold boohoo crew.
Apparently so. I'm interested to see how that plays out. Again, he did bring up the Giants in terms of they're clearly desperate at quarterback. So whether it's Darnold, Wilson, Rodgers, Cam Ward, whoever, like, what do the Giants do to try to pull off an answer at quarterback there? Going to be interesting to see. He said Shedeur Sanders is going to be the story of the draft here. Said he's a good fit with Cleveland at number 2. And if he doesn't go to Cleveland at number 2, it could be very interesting to see where Sanders ends up after that.
Interesting, too. Let's say the Titans make the trade with the Giants and they go to 3, and that's the key. Obviously, the Giants take Cam Ward, and let's say then the Titans could be sitting there at 3 with either of these guys, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter. Again, I'm still, not because of the foot, I'm going with Travis Hunter, and I'm thrilled to get him at 3 if that's the case. But it would be interesting if they actually – I figured that there's a better chance that they would have one of the 2 to choose from. But if that scenario plays out and Stefanski loves Shedeur Sanders, then there you go. And it's also interesting what he said about them not caring about the Deion badge. Because, again, the Deion Sanders thing hurts Shedeur Sanders. But it also sounds like, again, like I had not heard that one that he just told us, which is the tell us about your great moments. And he's talking about like taunting the dude with the wad. Like, really? I mean, look, these are young people, so you expect some level of immaturity, but also there are some things like, yeah, that's not, like what is a team going to think about that?
Right. Albert Breer, and this is not necessarily new because this was in his article the other day, but Abdul Carter is in Nashville today. They're kicking off their top 30 visits. Abdul Carter is in Nashville today with the Titans. Cam Ward in Cleveland for his visit with the Browns today.
Okay.
So there you go. I believe Ward is here tomorrow, if the calendar I remember is correct. And then Sanders is here on Sunday. Travis Hunter to come later.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
no, it's good. Again, I think they're doing it the right way. I think they're doing the things in the correct order. Got a texter who asks, will Tannehill play again?
I don't think so.
My guess would be no. He obviously has not announced a retirement. And if I'm him, you stay in shape. You do some deep sea fishing, and you maybe there is that special scenario where a true contender loses its starting quarterback and everything else is in place so they could still make a run, and he comes off the couch for that. But I if I had to guess right now, I would guess he won't take another snap in the league. And please, if you're asking because you think the Titans might, like, they will never, ever, ever happen again. Tannehill will never play for the Tennessee Titans ever again. They won't ask. He won't come.
Well, just it's been over a year at this point. Like I think even if the scenario pops up that you just described, where a contender at quarterback goes down, I don't think they're giving him a call. Like, I think the ship has sailed at this point.
Could be.
So
yeah, it's an interesting one. I think last year they
might have, but I mean,
it's been a while.
At some point, you've not played football in a very long time. Like,
yeah.
You could bring him in for a workout, I guess, but I
do think that the Flacco thing was one of those, because I think he's definitely better than Flacco, or at least, recent version of Tannehill is, and Flacco worked out pretty well there. But yeah, you may be right.
We'll see on that front. DK Metcalf, apparently the market's going to be very strong for him. So we'll see what the return ends up being, who gets him. But a lot of people interested in DK Metcalf out there.
Geno and DK together playing for Pete Carroll in Vegas with Brock Bowers.
Yeah, would that be the move for Vegas at quarterback? I mean, it's better than what they've had there for sure.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
Yeah,
especially because they obviously have that history. I think it'd be okay.
Just a nice Seahawks reunion out there with the Raiders.
The old AFC West.
Yeah,
back in the Dave Craig, Steve Largent days.
We'll see what happens on the Metcalf front. But like I said to start the show, like 27-year-old in the prime wide receivers don't become available all that much. So we'll see what that looks like and what the trade market is.
And real quick, really, I did not know. Maybe I just forgot, but the whole Tomlin Rodgers thing.
Yeah, Rodgers has talked about him a lot before in terms of like they really get along apparently and like each other. So I don't know if that means that he's going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers starting quarterback, but I did know that they have a great affinity for each other.
And go to Fish concerts together.
Yeah, I think so
that'd be wild.
What's the
Rodgers with the Steelers?
What's the cave system like in Pittsburgh? Got some mountains over there.
Coal mines.
Yeah.
I don't know if that really counts, but
man, where's Aaron? He's not at practice today.
Some real darkness.
He's in the coal mine over there. What's going on? Aaron! Mike Tomlin with the miner hat going, Aaron! We need you to come practice. Get out of there.
Now I'm thinking of the movie Zoolander for some reason.
We'll take your thoughts on what Charles Robinson had to say. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Rexrode, we'll see you in the morning.
Got a little emergency. Thanks. See ya.
Good morning. Your thoughts on what Charles Robinson had to say on Darnold. Your thoughts on the Ward-Sanders debate. And how far can Shedeur Sanders end up sliding in the draft? That one's going to be interesting to watch, too. All that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan today for Vanderbilt women's basketball as the number 8 seeded Commodores take on number 9 seed Tennessee in the SEC women's basketball tournament. Tip off at 10 o'clock this morning. Pregame beginning at 9:45. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 949thefan.com. Robby and Rexrode here with you. It is time for Pred's Pick to Click. Be the first caller. 615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. If you guess a goal scorer for the Predators tonight against the Seattle Kraken, you win a pair of tickets to a future Nashville Predators home game. Couple thoughts to get to real quick on what Charles Robinson had to say there. He does not expect the market for Darnold to be as robust as maybe previously thought. So what does that do for the interest level in him? And if it gets down low enough, does that change how the Titans view it? I mean, if you're not committing 3 or 4 years, if you're not paying over $40 million a year, does that change the way the Titans view him at quarterback? And really the question we began the show with that I think is important to ask in all of this. If they're not interested in Darnold, you look at the rest of the quarterback options with the veteran QBs and none of them really excite you. Is the answer just as simple as Cam Ward? Cam Ward's on his visit with Cleveland today. He's going to visit with the Titans later this week. Depending on how that goes, like do the Titans walk out of this, they're meeting with Cam Ward, everything they've learned about him throughout the draft process, and do they get to the end of this with free agency starting next week and they say, all right, Cam Ward is our plan at quarterback at number 1 overall? Or do they look at it and say, we feel good about Cam Ward and we feel better about the idea of being able to trade that pick for somebody to love Cam Ward, and we'll go address quarterback somewhere else for a year? I don't know. Like PK threw the idea out there yesterday of stopgap QB. There's not very many options there that get me overly excited. I don't think there's very many options there that get Titans fans themselves overly excited. So we'll see what happens on the Darnold front there. Sanders is going to be really interesting here. How do teams view him? We brought up the Brugler mock draft the other day. He had him falling all the way to 21 to Pittsburgh. So is that going to be the way it shakes out? Charles talked about Sanders potentially being a good fit in Cleveland with the scheme that they run. So I guess there's a chance. I mean, it could go Cam Ward at 1, either with the Titans or the Giants moving up or somebody else. Sanders at 2 to Cleveland. But if it doesn't, like where does Sanders end up after that? It's going to be very interesting to see on that. Let's head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, get into Pred's Pick to Click here. Standings update in the competition, by the way. Rexrode continuing to just rack up points. 13 correct answers. He's in first place. Listeners have moved to 9. I am at 7. Keyser at 4 correct answers in the competition. Let's head to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Randy to the program. Randy, thanks for calling in. Who is your pick to click tonight for the Nashville Predators?
Delgado.
There you go, Randy. I like it. Going Mark Delgado. How about it? Keyser, that's got to be the first time he's ever been selected in the competition.
I never picked him last year. Yeah, that's certainly the first time.
He's going first.
Hey, why not? He's filling in for Roman Yossi. He was on the call, and he's like, hey, who got called up after Roman Yossi got hurt? And I told him, and I was like, are you sure? He's like, yeah.
I like it. And if he scores tonight, Randy,
by golly,
soothsayer. I like it. All right, Keyser, you're up. Delgado's off the board.
Yes, he is. I'm going to go with Ryan O'Reilly this evening.
All right. Ryan O'Reilly scored twice last time out. Joe Rexrode is not here to make his pick.
Our intern did pick Brady Shea, if you do want to run with that. But
sure, that'll make Rexrode nice and upset. We'll do that.
Yeah.
So Brady Shea, the selection for Rexrode. And I will go, you know what? They played great last game. I like that line together. Give me Stamkos. I'll go Steven Stamkos to put another one in the net tonight. Delgado, O'Reilly, Shea, and Stamkos. It is without question the first time we've had those 4 as a combination there. Some NHL trade deadline stuff. Predators make the move last night, sending Novak and Shen to Pittsburgh. We talked about that earlier in the show. If you missed that conversation, get it on Robby and Rexrode, wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify. Pierre LeBrun putting it out there that Mikko Rantanen has informed Carolina that he is not ready to make a decision on where things stand with their contract offer. So he's not going to make it before the deadline, and now Carolina has to weigh the possibility of, are they going to send him elsewhere? They're going to make a trade, or are they going to keep him and potentially risk losing him for nothing after this season and after they make their playoff push. So we'll see what happens on the Rantanen front. That's the big fish still out there and still potentially to come at the NHL trading deadline. Preds have already been busy. Is anything more coming? Novak is gone. Luke Shen is gone. Gus Nyquist is gone. Does somebody offer you something you can't turn down for Ryan O'Reilly? Is Michael McCarron a part of the plans? It's going to be interesting to see how the deadline shakes out here. But we're one day away from the NHL trading deadline. See what Barry Trotz has up his sleeve. And look, everybody's focusing in on selling, and I get it. Barry Trotz did say earlier this year that regardless of where they are in the standings, if he feels like he can go acquire someone that helps them beyond this year, that he would not hesitate to do it. So does that person exist? And is Barry Trotz looking for that? Somebody with some term on their contract that he feels like could be a part of the solution next season. You can never discount the possibility of that happening this time of year. So we'll see what happens on the NHL trading deadline. Front Preds in action tonight, taking on the Seattle Kraken at Bridgestone Arena. And then tomorrow, it's deadline day. You got Abdul Carter in town for a visit today for the Titans. And next week, it's in NFL free agency. So we're right around the corner for things happening here as we head into the NFL offseason. That does it for us today here on the program. Chasing Big Joe is coming up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3, The Game.